is 22 minutes now before 8 o'clock. Time to go through the papers. Joining us this morning, Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi. Dawn, you want to start with a bit of censorship stuff here. Roald Dahl's Matilda.
There's a lot of it around, isn't there? This is a story that actually broke last week, but it's been moved on by our... who is it? Who's criticising it? Salman Rushdie. Sorry, Salman Rushdie has criticised the censorship now. Basically, the Puffin, new edition of Roald Dahl's books, have been rewritten, so anything upsetting and offensive has been taken out. So the Oompa Loompas are now gender neutral. Augustus Gloop is now not fat. They're big, I think is the word they use. So but this is sort of like, you know, the sensitivity police, as Rushdie has said, and his blast it's absurd censorship. And what gives them the right to rewrite Roald Dahl's? Look, we all know Roald Dahl wasn't the nicest person on earth, racist, anti-Semitic, etc., etc. However, the books have been classics, and I don't understand what gives Puffin the right to rewrite his words so they don't offend anyone. I don't know any kids that have actually been offended by this. I mean, I was a big fan of Hans Christian Andersen when I was a kid, and some of the fairy tales there make Roald Dahl look like a picnic.
Yeah, I don't know, it's a difficult one. I hate censorship and I hate rewriting books, I really do, especially the classics. But having read the Twits recently with my eldest, he's only 7, and I did wince at some of the language, thinking, do I really want him repeating some of this in the playground? Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say we should censor books, but I certainly thought, well, maybe I won't be reading any more Roald Dahl for a while.
But that's your choice, Isabel. Just don't read them to your children.
But
they
no
don't need to be rewritten.
From modern authors like David Walliams, there's plenty of language referring to fat and stupid and all these sorts of things, which are just unpleasant playground words that children don't need to necessarily be encouraged to use.
Parents have a choice. Read it, don't read it, but don't rewrite it.
As a parent, Chris, you've had a choice with your kids, reading them stories?
So, look, I've got a young girl at 12, and I was shocked the other day when I got onto a sort of she's got her own little profile, and some of the stuff that was downloaded on there, and the language, so their own little communities, they've got such foul language going on. So I'll be reticent to sort of try to conform history to today's standards. You know, let the piece stand as it was and see the evolution, the cultural evolution, and allow new authors to produce a type of literature that reflects our current understanding of what's socially acceptable or not. But trust me, our children have got their own little communities where they talk about stuff that is surprising to me. So I wouldn't like go into this censorship business. I don't believe it.
Chris, I'm glad you've chosen this story in the Eye at page 11. Really concerning news over the weekend that China is contemplating supporting Russia.
Yeah.
Antony Blinken for the US Defence coming out strongly saying there will be consequences, but, you know, very worrying development.
So, I'm really glad you used the word concerning, because I looked at it and I thought, well, is this just me, or will the great British public, when they open the eye, will they be concerned to see that the US warn Russia against any move to supply Putin with weapons? Now, what we do know is that Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, has not condemned, as of yet, the Russians' incursion into Ukraine, and it's been a year now. But if you look at their language, I'm worried about, over the horizon, a potential World War III escalation. So the Chinese military also warned the US against escalation, I think, in something that Dawn's going to talk about, around those, you know, those sky bubbles or sky balloons, and saying that if you actually go any further and escalate on that, we will go on to the end. Now, what does the end mean? It says China will follow through to the end, and the US will bear all the consequences. What does that mean? I don't know what the euphemism means, but it's a concern and it's alarming. And then Blinken goes on further and says, is quite blunt in saying that there may be implications and consequences for China in providing material support to Russia. We don't know what support that they're already providing at the moment, political, rhetorical, and helping Russia avoid the sanctions. But what is the material support that Blinken is talking about, and what would the consequences be? And you've got to be very careful when you start hearing this language. For me, as a general member of the public, I look at that, and over the horizon there's a small little alarm as to where this local conflict in Europe could go in the end.
Yeah, there's definitely a ratcheting up of sort of escalation around the world, and it ties in with the next story, Dawn, that you've chosen in the Times about TikTok and China's influence.
Yes, this is an interview that the US Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, has given, where, as I said, we're all talking about the alleged spy balloons, potential weather balloons. We're not quite sure what they actually are that are being shot down over America at the moment. But she is actually saying young people should be very aware about TikTok, which is owned by a Chinese company. And all the data you put onto TikTok when you use that app, and the youngsters are very much engaged with TikTok, is stored by the Chinese and could be used against you. So, you know, all this talk about the balloons, and it's like, you know, China are also sort of in charge of a lot of our digital communications, 5G masts, nuclear power stations they're helping to fund build over here. And
all your white goods, that respond to you talking.
Was a story last week, your fridge could be spying on you.
100%.
Yeah, and they also own a lot of the CCTV cameras we use in this country. So the balloons are pretty much the least of our worries at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, small fry.
All right. How are we doing for time? Do we need to... We could do one more. Good. OK. Where should we go, Eamon? What do you fancy for the remaining...
Jugs?
Let's go for some jugs.
Hey! so, that's schoolboy error. Leave it, Akabusi. Okie dokie. No mug with jugs. There's this young man, he started collecting when he was 6. His mum is an antique collector. He's now got 200 Royal Doulton character jugs worth 20,000 smackaroonies. That's 20k, including the Beatles, Status Quo, King Henry VIII. And I just love the story and the passion of how you do influence your children. I mean, this guy has obviously been influenced by his mum, who's an antique collector. He started with his 6, started going to car boot sales and collecting his Royal Doulton mugs.
Who's he got? He's got famous faces.
Yeah, he's got Sgt. Pepper, the Beatles,
yes,
and a Sgt. Pepper's band. He's got King Henry the Eighth. Is that Anne Boleyn by the side there? Some sort of. I mean, I'm not into sort of the jazz, but some people with guitars. So, but it's just the idea that this kid has got 200 of them. Status Quo. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. I won't jump up and do not Status Quo acts. But it's just brilliant to see that this young man, he's 26 now, over the last 20 years has been fastidiously collecting, and all of a sudden he's got this collection that's worth 20 grand. Yeah. And I wonder what you've been collected over your time, Eamon. That might be worth...
God, I dare you to say jugs.
I collect movie posters.
Do you?
Yeah, I've got some quite good movie posters.
Oh, right.
There's a lot of film noir stuff. I've got a lot of John Wayne.
Fabulous. Where are they in your house? I mean, do you actually...
Well, you see, they used to be, and then Ruth came along. Man, things of everything. So now I have a room which I'll have... I used to have movie posters, but I've changed them now to Man United posters and art and memorabilia. So but I've got them stored in the loft. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Ruth won't allow you to have the old man's room somewhere where you've got it in there.
She doesn't see the value of them.
Oh,
she doesn't see the value of it.
My God.
Yeah.
I'm collecting golf balls.
Okay, good. It's nice.
Really?
Fly past.
No, because every time I go to an event, you get your golf balls, and I know I look at all these things and I think one day when my toes curl up, my girls will come into my house and they're going to see these thousands of golf balls. And what's the old man kept these things for?
So do you collect them and they have like a sponsor stamp on them, or do they have a brand name on them? Titleist,
Stritson, so all the top names. But yeah, then you've got all the events you've been to, so I won't name all the events you've been to, they're all there, and I'm not a great golfer, but I'm not losing my balls.
There you go.
Leave it, Dawn.
Exactly, there you go. We've got to say goodbye to Chris and Dawn on that lovely note. We'll have more fun just after 8:30. But we do, don't we? We've got some happy news we want to share very quickly with our viewers.
One of our directors who works here, Robin, and Robin's a girl, and you'll find out she's a girl because she produced this child. And her other half, the producer director Tom, Well, we think they may be watching us from hospital.
From hospital.
Tom and
they've got
Robin.
exciting news. They are now the proud parents of a beautiful little girl. There she is, Eden Millie Buena, and she was born yesterday. And, Robin's been directing this programme, heavily pregnant for months, hasn't she? So we're absolutely thrilled to have some baby news, and lots of love to you all. And also a big shout out to Oscar, who becomes a big brother today. So that's very sweet.
Congratulations. Lovely news there.